It's a Black Sunday in South Africa and the entire African continent as Nobel Peace Prize winning activist for racial justice and the retired Anglican Archbishop of Cape Town, Desmond Tutu, passed on early this morning. The elder statesman, who was 90 years old, lived a life that positively influenced the lives of so many people, regardless of race, nationality, and religion. He was an uncompromising enemy of apartheid, South Africa's brutal regime of oppression, and against the black majority. Archbishop Tutu worked tirelessly, though non-violently, for the downfall or the end of apartheid. World leaders have already started commiserating with the government and people of South Africa over the demise of this figure, global figure, while his home in South Africa has attracted droves of tourists and locals since his death was announced by Anglican Archbishop Thabo Makgoba, the current Archbishop of Cape Town. Here is a brief package from Arise TV on the life and times of the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu. We take that first.
Desmond Tutu was a rebellious priest, albeit for a good cause, whose doggedness and fighting spirit won him global acclamation.
Freedom! Freedom is not cheap.
The South African Anglican bishop and theologian started life as a teacher, but abandoned that career after the passage of the Bantu Education Act in 1953, which introduced racial segregation in schools. Anti-apartheid campaigner and human rights activist than for evangelism. The buoyant, blunt-spoken clergyman used his pulpit as the first black bishop of Johannesburg and later Archbishop of Cape Town, as well as frequent public demonstrations to galvanize public opinion against racial inequity, both at home and globally.
We don't take our marching orders from the ANC or the Communist Party.
He was, however, quick to add that his opposition to apartheid was driven by his religious belief that God created human beings equal and there was no political undertone to his anti-apartheid advocacy.
I want you to lift your hands.
He was the Bishop of Johannesburg from 1985 to 1986 and then the Archbishop of Cape Town from 1986 to 1996, in both cases being the first black African to hold the position. Theologically, he sought to fuse ideas from black theology with African theology. Desmond Mpilo Tutu was born of mixed Xhosa and Botswana heritage to a poor family in Klerksdorp, South Africa. Entering adulthood, he trained as a teacher and married Nomalizo Leah Tutu, with whom he had several children. In 1960, he was ordained as an Anglican priest and in 1962 moved to the United Kingdom to study theology at King's College, London.
We are the rainbow people of God.
In 1966, he returned to Southern Africa, teaching at the Federal Theological Seminary and then the University of Botswana, Lesotho, and Swaziland. From 1978 to 1985, he was General Secretary of the South African Council of Churches. He emerged as one of the most prominent opponents of South Africa's apartheid system of racial segregation and white minority rule. Although warning the National Party government that anger at apartheid would lead to racial violence, as an activist, he stressed non-violent protest and foreign economic pressure to bring about universal suffrage.
Like 1994 here in South Africa, apartheid, whoops, gone, freedom arrived.
After President F.W. de Klerk released the anti-apartheid activist Nelson Mandela from prison in 1990, and the pair led negotiations to end apartheid and introduce multiracial democracy, Tutu assisted as a mediator between rival black factions. After the 1994 general election resulted in a coalition government headed by Mandela, the latter selected Tutu to chair the Truth and Reconciliation Commission to investigate past human rights abuses committed by both pro- and anti-apartheid groups.
600 died in the Soweto turmoil.
Following apartheid's fall, Tutu campaigned for gay rights and spoke out on a wide range of subjects, among them the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, his opposition to the Iraq War, and his criticism of South African Presidents Thabo Mbeki and Jacob Zuma. In 2010, he retired from public life. As he rose to prominence through his activism, he elicited different opinions from his compatriots. White conservatives who supported apartheid despised him, while many white liberals regarded him as too radical. Many black radicals accused him of being too moderate and focused on cultivating white goodwill, while Marxists-Leninists criticized his anti-communist stance. His activism earned him many awards, including the Nobel Peace Prize. In a fitting tribute, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, in a statement announcing the passage of the Archbishop, says Tutu's death on Sunday is another chapter of bereavement in our nation's farewell to a generation of outstanding South Africans who have bequeathed us a liberated South Africa. From the pavements of resistance in South Africa to the pulpits of the world's great cathedrals and places of worship, and the prestigious setting of the Nobel Peace Prize ceremony, the Ark distinguished himself as a non-sectarian, inclusive champion of universal human rights. Tutu had been hospitalized several times since 2015 after being diagnosed with prostate cancer in 1997. In recent years, he and his wife Leah lived in a retirement community outside Cape Town.
I'm now being joined by Professor Femi Badejo, former Deputy Special Representative of the United Nations Secretary General for Somalia. He is currently a Professor, Political Science and International Relations at Christland University, Abeokuta, Ogun State. Professor Badejo, thank you for joining us, and I apologize for imposing on you. I know you're having a family Christmas, Boxing Day lunch in a restaurant somewhere, but okay, this is about the world. Desmond Tutu as person.
Yes.
What is his significance? What do you know about him? What is the symbolism of the man himself?
No, we lost a great human being. I would hesitate to reduce Archbishop Desmond Tutu into being a South African or even an African. We had a fantastic human being of the 20th and 21st century who went out of his way to stand up for justice, not only in South Africa, but in a number of places in Africa and even in the world. In the account that you gave was very, very clear that he was after justice in Israel with respect to the Palestinian question. He was after justice in terms of the problems of the bigger powers in Iraq. He stood up for justice in Northern Ireland, several other places, including even our own country, Nigeria.
Well, Prof, Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu was also very strongly connected with Nigeria. You were part of that narrative, either from your association with President Olusegun Obasanjo or other things that you did in the course of your career as an international diplomat. Can you help to establish that connection between Archbishop Tutu and Nigeria?
Yes, there is no doubt that Archbishop Desmond Tutu was very, very much involved in justice in Nigeria, as I mentioned earlier on. That dates back to, even when you check on the history, it dates back to our civil war as it ended, and in spite of the no victor, no vanquished, Desmond Tutu spoke up about the need to respect the rights of Igbo people in Nigeria and to have them completely absorbed into the scheme of things. And of course, Desmond Tutu was right there when we had the unfortunate experience with late Sonny Abacha. I had actually gone to South Africa to meet, to try to meet Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu on the problem of President Olusegun Obasanjo being incarcerated at the time. That was something like about April 1995. Some international friends of his had arranged that I should undertake that effort while in South Africa. Unfortunately, I could not meet Archbishop Desmond Tutu. The best that happened, this was 1995, the best that happened was that he chose to speak to me on the phone. And he explained that he would be going to Nigeria to try to persuade General Sonny Abacha on granting freedom to MKO Abiola. He told me that his brief had been given by the state president, and it was late in the day because I think it was like to travel a day or two when we had this telephone conversation. It was late in the day for him to add Olusegun Obasanjo to his meeting with Abacha, but he would try his best depending on the opportunities as they might arise while on the ground. Of course, he came to Nigeria to carry out that task. I was only lucky to meet Gracia Machel as Mandela's wife. It was not possible to meet Mandela at the time. Of course, when we visited earlier with President Obasanjo in 1990, also to try to see what Nigeria can do on the problem of South Africa, it was not possible for us to meet Archbishop Desmond Tutu because he was not in town at the time. Alex Borain, who became his deputy at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, was the one who organized our visit and explained the problem of the impossibility of being able to meet Archbishop Desmond Tutu at the time. He did a lot. He did a lot all over the world, including our country, as I have mentioned.
Well, Prof, you recall that Archbishop Desmond Tutu, yes, we remember him for his courage, for his commitment, for the efforts he made, anti-apartheid efforts. When President Mandela took over government, historically, he made him the chairman of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And it was Archbishop Desmond Tutu that came up with this idea about the Rainbow Coalition, the Rainbow Nation. Now, when you look back now, do you think that reconciliation campaign has worked in South Africa? Do you think that South Africa is effectively, as part of the legacy of Desmond Tutu, truly a rainbow coalition, a rainbow nation, which was the phrase that he used, or that the black people in South Africa are left with the short end of the stick?
Well, Archbishop Desmond Tutu actually used the expression rainbow people of God because as a clergy, he placed the emphasis on we are all of the same God that we all descended from, and there is no basis for one part of civilization to colonize and control the other. And he stood up. He stood up for that with respect to the situation in South Africa itself. And as freedom came to South Africa, it was possible for him to build a coalition that talks about the freedom for the entire country. So many things he did in this respect. He was the first on the continent to embark on accepting women into priesthood in the Anglican Church. So gender balance was important for him, and everybody being a child of God, he was also not averse to all the problems that other people are talking about. He had all the confidence of seeing himself as a human being first before the color. And as a result of that, he tried the level best that he could use religion to put in place. However, it is clear that religion has a limit of its own. Religion can play some role in maintaining power, and it can also play a role in dismantling illegal use of power, as many people have shown around the world with respect to liberation theology. I would put Desmond Tutu, even though he never really referred to himself as a liberation theologian, an expression that came out of Latin America, but I'll put him in that situation because what he did to garner the support internationally all around the United States, UK, to use the same religion that people sold to us before they defrauded us on the continent. He used it successfully to say that, look, I'm not a violent person. I do not support violence, but I can understand why the Black conscious movement of Steve Biko has to pursue violence when they are not being able to get far on the question of getting the apartheid regime out of power. Now, with the success of the apartheid regime being out of power, with all the efforts all over the world, it was necessary to have the example of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that Alexander Borain designed, and he, Archbishop Tutu, became the chairman, Borain his deputy, and that example that they used has since been borrowed in many parts of the world as a way to allow more of people to people reach out to each other in a post-conflict situation to have dialogue. But has it solved the problems of South Africa? No, the problem of freedom still looms large in South Africa. There is no doubt that the discriminatory inheritance that was on the ground is still being perpetuated in spite of the fact that a few leaders have been able to corner a reasonable portion of the capitalist free enterprise wealth, free enterprise in quotes on my own part, and I think even on the part of Archbishop Desmond Tutu, he did put free enterprise in quotes because he said that he was yet to see the freedom that free enterprise brought on the face of the earth. So the problem is still there. It's not a problem that is that of South Africa alone. It's also a problem for even our own country, even though we don't have the same racial profile in defining the problem that we face here. So I do hope that the legacies of Desmond Tutu will be looked at kindly by those who are in authority, but it is a hope because it's difficult to expect that those whose interests are paramount and are being served are going to voluntarily give up those interests and change all of a sudden and allow a generalized number of people having access to the good things of life, whether in terms of wealth, health, or even as simple as food and shelter, which many people are still suffering from. If you visit South Africa, you will still see the disparity clearly all over the place. Once you step out of Johannesburg, Cape Town, Durban, and such places, you see quite that tells you that a lot still has to be done to deliver the good life to the Rainbow Nation.
Well, Prof, excellent. Very excellent. I know your family is waiting somewhere there in the restaurant, and I dragged you away from Boxing Day, event. But very quickly, President Olusegun Obasanjo, who, as you know, is our father, and your father too, issued a statement saying that Archbishop Desmond Tutu helped with Nigeria's debt cancellation process and all of that. In the tribute that he issued very early today on the demise of Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Do you have any information in that regard in terms of the role that Archbishop Desmond Tutu played in that regard? I know at that time you were very close to the then President Olusegun Obasanjo.
Yes, I was in a way, and I wasn't in another way because I was outside the country at that particular point in time. I was facing what you call it, peace processes in Somalia, then Liberia, when the issue of debt cancellation was very strong. But it took the efforts of several people and the strong, convinced efforts of President Obasanjo that our unborn generations would not be fine if the debts that had been accumulated were to remain. And of course, that meant several people had to put their voice and put pressure on the Paris Club and the London Club to be concerned about the situation of poverty with respect to the question of huge debts that we had. Of course, as you all know, that those processes that President Obasanjo led at that time reduced radically or even almost eliminated. But we are back into even bigger debts today, which we can leave for another time. Now is to talk about the fact that we lost a big man who, as I said, was not just apartheid South Africa. Of course, he was very well known for that. He spoke he spoke the truth to power, including Mandela, because people don't pay attention to that. He confronted Mandela for retaining the machinery of so-called defense in South Africa, armaments, and pumping money into that. He did, of course, Mandela respected him and said, well, he could have come to discuss this privately. He also was not excited about Thabo Mbeki and Jacob Zuma and the various things. And he spoke up. He spoke up constantly, speaking truth to power, not minding. Other people would have said, well, since it is Mandela, since it is Thabo Mbeki, they have, no. He was for justice across the board, and he stood up for injustice. Very few clergymen do you find doing that anywhere in the world? The clergy have always been on the right-hand side of the oppressors of the world in going away with the wealth of countries and taking a little of what they can get as the clergy and promising people about paradise when they get to heaven. But they can see that other people are having paradise here on earth. But it is good for the people to wait to get to heaven before they have their own paradise because of eternal life and all the rest of it. No, we must recognize Archbishop Desmond Tutu has been fantastic, a prelate in the 20th and the 21st century.
Well, Prof, I know by now, family, they may be getting restless. Say this Reuben Abatia has taken Prof away from us. I don't want the food to get cold.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's my daughter's 40th birthday.
Okay.
And she came all the way from the United States to mark it with the larger family. But that is okay. They understand that I just needed to do this and time cannot change. So they are very, very understanding in that respect, and I appreciate them.
Yeah, do you want to mention her name and use this opportunity to wish her a very happy birthday on Arise News? We don't mind.
Yes. Yes, she's Adetokunbo Badejo Shodia.
Yes.
Adetokunbo Badejo Shodia, and with her beautiful daughter, my first granddaughter, Lara Shodia.
Well, congratulations, Tokumbo. Many happy returns. But quickly, before we go, Prof, if she was there, I would have asked her to just show up on Arise News. But it's fine. I know they are in the restaurant. But very quickly, I would like you to comment on COVID-19. You are a professor of political science and international relations. And there is that dimension to it. The federal government of Nigeria has said, look, this festive season, people should be careful. The Presidential Steering Committee has said, look, even what do they call it, Professor Akintenewa, oversight or overnight, whatever, the event on December 31st, overnight. That people, the overnight crossover event, that people should be careful. And that Nigerians should know that Omicron is real. And that all of us have a duty, a responsibility to be careful. So that December doesn't become Omicronos. What's your take on that? Particularly the international relations dimension of it.
Well, I totally agree with our Presidential Steering Committee that we cannot be over careful with respect to COVID-19. There is no doubt that COVID-19 is very real. We have been relatively lucky in Africa and Nigeria in particular in terms of what the rest of the world had faced. But we should not push our luck too far, more so when our government has failed woefully in making it possible for us to have vaccination like other places in the world. And I am saying this with all frankness, that a country like Nigeria that had so many experts of virology who are making their own waves all around the world, assisting in the work of the American NIH and all the rest of it, should not be begging. And then the United Nations Secretary General is making us feel comfortable that the rest of the world must listen to the needs of Africa. No, it is wrong. It is wrong that we allowed all the capacities that colonialism left for us with respect to being able to make vaccines. We allowed all of them with our corruption to disappear. A small country like Cuba, under embargo of the United States, made its own vaccine and is waiting for WHO approval, but meanwhile is giving it to its people, and we are understanding that the result has been fantastic. Vaccines, I'm not talking about all this herbal concoction that people are talking about. Herbal concoction, they can help in building immunity, but there is no doubt that viruses are best fought with vaccines. And for some reason, we are still waiting for the dole out that come to us 2-3 weeks before they expire, and we now have to destroy millions of vaccines. No, we as a country must wake up, even though I must accept that a lot of effort has gone into talking to our people, and there has been relative commendation to some states like Lagos and Ogun in terms of attending to the problems of the problems of caring for people with respect to this problem. But there is no doubt that we don't know how many variants are out there. It's going to even be more difficult for countries today to say much about variants, given the way that United States as well as UK and a number of European countries behaved strangely and wrongly in their racist reaction to the fact that South Africa's diligence in discovering the Omicron variant and making the information available to the rest of the world so that we can collectively counter it was immediately turned around against those countries, and they put them on bans to visit the countries where these things originated, according to what is now being found out in terms of those variants. The preaching that we give at the international level that all cannot be safe when one is not safe is not sinking. People are thinking that they can just lock up their own specific countries and interact with their own kind and leave Africans to suffer their fate. But I don't blame them, because African leadership is in denial in the fact that they have to govern and reduce the level of corruption in order to make it possible for us to be able to cater for ourselves. We should have been taking charge of providing vaccines for Africa, just like India was doing for much of the world before they had the Delta variant that made them to become more insular in trying to meet their needs at home. But we are begging, no country in Africa, whether you are talking about South Africa with its own capacity, that is able to say, okay, we have produced our own vaccine, we are waiting for WHO approval. We are begging for Chinese, we are begging for whatever. And we are not even buying, in spite of the riches of the country, to say, okay, let us make these things available. Let's buy when other people were buying. No, they told us that they are making budget. It is not in the budget. They will soon do it in the budget and whatever. Of course, we all know what went with the story of the palliatives. The fact that, so there is a lot of politics that is around COVID-19. The cost of tests are something that we should pressure our governments. Why is it that other countries are giving this service free? I was passing through in the United States, and in order to be tested, it was free for me. But for Nigeria to accept me back into my country, I must pay over $100 into some people's pockets. And it's not even that expensive, but what is really going on? We need to be asking a lot of questions of our government and not just sit back. Now they are saying, oh, if you want to take a vaccine from the private sector in the Lagos area, you can pay 6,000. People are not even taking as much as they should. Biden just said he was going to make the rapid antigen available. He's going to buy 500 million and distribute to Americans so that everybody can get tested and you know your status. But for us to do rapid antigen, it's 20,000 naira, the minimum. Now, and then the PCR is over 50,000 naira. We need to look at many of these political dimensions, not only international. International, quite all right, is important, but also the local dimension of it. There is a lot that is going wrong on COVID-19, even though I support the fact that the protocols that WHO had put in place is important for us to adhere to and reduce the number of problems because we have what kind of health facilities do we have in the first instance?
Hello, Prof. Well, thank you very much, Professor Baba Femi Badejo, for joining us on This Day Live, the Sunday talk show today. And I would like to thank Hassan and all the people at the Zen restaurant in Ikeja, 60, Ikeja Jare, well, I don't know whether, Isaac John, 60 Isaac John, for providing Prof the opportunity to join us from that very location. And happy birthday, congratulations to my sister, your daughter, who is 40 today. Thank you very much, Professor Baba Femi Badejo, Professor of Political Science and International Relations, who has been discussing the passing of Desmond Tutu with us. Archbishop Desmond Tutu, the Arch, as he is popularly known. Well, he lived a great life, and that's the major message from Professor Badejo. Professor Badejo, is also a veteran in this business, our teacher. And we're glad to have a man like him representing Nigeria and being, there for all of us intellectually.